Welcome, and thank you for choosing to learn more about DDSN. This presentation is entitled Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, DDSN, What Schools Need to Know About Us in Transition. This presentation is narrated by Jennifer Quinn, who is one of the post-secondary transition coordinators. SCDDSN has 3 staff who are employed to provide services to schools, families, agency staff, and other stakeholders. We assist in smoothing the transition from high school to the adult world for our consumers. Rhonda Mumford covers the upstate of South Carolina. Laura covers York, Lancaster, Chester, Richland, and the PD region, and I cover the low country of South Carolina, Aiken, and Lexington counties. Our territory maps are located on DDSN's website's transition page and later in this presentation. These are the topics that I'll cover in this presentation. This presentation is designed for middle and high school teachers and school professionals to help have an understanding of the South Carolina Department of Disabilities and Special Needs. This presentation is to provide school staff with the knowledge to speak to their students and families about the benefits of connecting with DDSN while still in school. By the end of the presentation, you will be able to answer the questions listed here. You may have questions for us. Please reach out to your transition coordinator for answers, as identified later in our territory maps. Your understanding of DDSN is essential. By working together, we can provide a seamless transition for young people who have support needs after high school and into adulthood. Why do your students need DDSN? Because leaving school is a big transition. The transition from high school to adult services requires planning. Families and students need to be aware of options for them after high school and know what is necessary to meet their desired post-school outcomes. Part of planning is researching what is available. Part of creating a plan is thinking about the skills needed to do these activities and start working towards the post-school goals while still in high school. Transition is a backward planning process. You need to see where you want to go and then work backward from where you are to plan the path to get there. For example, a young person with an intellectual disability served in a non-diploma program would like to work with animals after high school. While in high school in the early years, he may participate in an animal science elective class that may have had some in-school activities to help him explore jobs he can do without college. At age 16, he will work with the assistance of vocational rehabilitation, or VR, to participate in job shadowing and eventually trial work experiences with a job coach. He will enter paid employment in his final year of school, so he exits school with a job. His VR counselor will coordinate for him to receive ongoing job coaching services from DDSN after he exits school and his VR case is closed. This little story is an example of how a seamless transition should work. Students who are going to require adult services should be doing the same thing as a student going on to college. They need to tour programs, find the best fit, apply and build skills to engage in the highest level possible. There are many differences between services a student will receive and the services in an adult world. Just like when students leave high school and go to college, there are differences between education programs for children and adults. All children must go to school. Not every adult goes to college. High school is free, where a college has tuition, and students must have the funding to attend. Adult services are similar that the individual wanting the service must apply and meet the eligibility requirements for the adult service agency's services. Just as adults must find funding to pay for college, similarly, there's a cost to providing services to adults with disabilities, and funds must be secured to provide and pay for those services. The adult world places responsibility on the consumer and the family to initiate and seek out services. This different emphasis is a big switch from the way things have worked previously for families and schools. Schools have child fund requirements, and efforts fall to the school special education staff to take the lead on planning IEP meetings, scheduling evaluations, and setting up services. In the adult world, the ball shifts to the families, which puts new responsibilities on them that they may not have had before. As a school professional, it is imperative to make families aware of these changes during the transition process. It is essential to let them know what they need to apply as early as possible, because services are not guaranteed like they are in high school. They will need to plan and look at the available options and what adult agencies require to access these options. Where schools cycle students through high school every 4 to 6 years, our services continue to serve individuals for long periods. People's needs will change over the person's lifespan, but DDSN is a lifelong agency that has programs to meet people's needs at various stages of life. In your transition planning for students, you will be asking 3 questions. 1, what kind of further education or training does the student need or want? 2, what type of job or career do the students want? 3, where does the student want to live, and how does he or she want to spend their free time? Therefore, when you are transition planning for your students, you will want to familiarize yourself with the options available in your community to help support students with these post-school outcomes. You need to be aware of the options in your community for further education, training, employment opportunities, and available supports and independent living options. As a teacher, you can share your knowledge with students and families so they can make informed choices about their future. High school is a perfect time to connect with agencies that will provide supports in the future. Research shows that students who received assistance from 3 to 6 agencies were more likely to have successful post-school employment or education. You are probably familiar with Indicator 13 requirements to invite agencies to IEP meetings. Indicator 13 encourages you to help link these resources while the students are in school. Most agencies will not allow clients to get the same service from more than one agency, but agencies can wrap services around an individual. For example, a student might get family respite services from a DDSN agency, a job coach from VR, and special education services from the school district. With the student, family, and agency working together, we can share resources to provide the most exceptional opportunities for success. This slide shows some of the possible agencies you might want to consider in your transition planning. South Carolina Vocational Rehabilitation Department, or VR, is a state agency for work. They can provide pre-employment transition services, or PREETs, for all students even without opening a case. Supported and customized employment is now included by the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, or WIOA, in the definition of competitive employment. So consider involving the VR counselor to work with all of your students. Other agencies you will want to consider are the local DDSN service providers in your area. We'll talk more about these later. Be aware of programs for continued learning after high school for students. These can be college programs, trade schools, or industry certificates. Being aware of local social and recreational programs can provide valuable learning opportunities and ways to build social skills as well. The South Carolina Assistive Technology Center is another excellent resource. Assistive technology that can assist a person in being more independent can be life-changing for individuals. Exploring 18 Now can provide opportunities while in school to learn how to use technologies and makes excellent transition goals and activities. Learning to use public transportation, or Uber, Lyft, might be other activities and entities to connect with students. By linking students with agencies while in school, you can provide long-term opportunities to benefit your students in the future. We plan, develop, oversee, and fund services for people with lifelong disabilities. Unlike schools that help all students with disabilities, DDSN serves those with severe lifelong disabilities that we listed on the slide. We serve South Carolina residents of either an intellectual disability, mild, moderate, or severe, an autism spectrum disorder, or head injury or spinal cord injury, or those with a related disability. That's a disability related to an intellectual disability, such as Down syndrome, or a similar disability, which is a disability similar to head or spinal cord injury, such as a traumatic brain injury. We do provide some limited services for children, but we are primarily an adult service provider. Regular Medicaid and the school offer many services to students, so many folks don't need DDSN services while in school. DDSN is a state agency. People have to have some proof of living in South Carolina, meaning to be domiciled in South Carolina. There are no financial requirements, and we do not use income or bank records to determine if a person is eligible for our services. It does not cost any money to apply, and if warranted, we can provide evaluations to establish eligibility at no cost. Applying to be a client of DDSN does not obligate you to receive any services. Our services are free and does not interfere with Social Security benefits. We plan, develop, oversee, and fund services for people with lifelong disabilities. Our mission is to assist people with disabilities and their families in meeting needs, pursuing possibilities, and achieving life goals, as well as to minimize the occurrence and reduce the severity of disabilities through prevention. DDSN offers a variety of services to meet needs of individuals and their families. Every person has a different need, so each person will have a plan for services that are different. Personal services are those services provided to an individual to meet their needs. Some examples are in-home supports or adult companion services, where a person identifies a goal can get support from a companion to help learn those skills to meet that goal. Another example might be personal care assistant, where someone assists with daily living activities such as bathing, dressing, and eating. Service providers often provided services to the consumer in their home or community-based setting. Family support services can be a service such as respite, allowing families a break from day-to-day caregiving of their loved one, or a summer camp program. Additionally, things like modifications to the home or assistive technology are services that make caring for an individual easier. Day services are programs where adults can attend during the daytime hours to receive services. These programs include career preparation training to help develop the skills needed for successful employment, or support services, which provides supervision when a parent has to work. Individual employment services are provided in inclusive work settings and may include a job coach to support a person in obtaining a job, on-the-job training, and support in keeping that job. Group employment could mean a mobile work crew or an enclave where the individual works as a part of a group in a community setting. Residential services are in high demand, but DDSN has a range of living options based on the individual support needs. Residential services can range from fairly independent living, such as our supported living programs. In this type of setting, people live in their own apartment with some support for things like budgeting money. Other options are community training homes that you can find in local communities. These homes generally have 4 residents per house with 24-hour supervision. We also provide intermediate care facilities with nursing staff for those with more significant medical needs. DDSN also provides prevention and genetic services. People often don't know that we operate the Greenwood Genetic Center and can provide testing to families. Additionally, we provide training and education to help reduce disabilities, such as those that result from accidents, such as a traumatic brain injury and spinal cord injury. Now that you see all the amazing services DDSN provides, you will want to be sure your students are connected. DDSN is trying to get this message out to families by educating school staff about DDSN and how adult services work through activities like this presentation. Another way is to work with individual schools and teachers to ensure that students who may be DDSN eligible are already linked. Start by asking your families if they know if they're connected. Many families will be able to share with you the name of their case manager. Other families may not be aware if they're with DDSN or not. In these cases, your DDSN post-secondary transition coordinator can assist you in getting this information. To do this, we need to know who your students are. To look them up in our system, we will need their name and date of birth. Sharing of information across agencies requires a release of information form. DDSN has a transition release form available that can be signed by the consumer and their family to document permission to share information across agencies. Please have this signed so we can provide you with information regarding your student. Information we can share is their eligibility status with DDSN, who their case manager is, and what agency provider the case manager is from. If they already have one of our waivers, or if they're on where they are on our waiver waiting list. For those who are not yet clients, we can share information to help families with the process. If a family allows us to also share information with vocational rehabilitation, we can work collaboratively with a VR counselor to help students keep their jobs after they graduate school. One of the 3 DDSN transition coordinators can provide this information. Sherry Matthews also assists us with answering these questions since we're traveling around the state, so we may not be able to respond immediately to your request. Once you know who is connected and who is not, you will want to those you feel are potentially eligible but not yet connected to apply to DDSN. This process begins with a screening call to an 800 number. Calling this number is the only way to start the process, and it only takes about 15 minutes to do so. Visit our website for a flyer you can download for your families, or your post-secondary transition coordinator can provide you with a flyer to send home. The flyer explains the process and contains the 800 number and the information needed when making the phone call. By using the handout, the family will have everything that they need when they make that call. Some teachers find it helpful to sit down with a parent after an IEP meeting and make the call. Sometimes it gives them just that confidence to do so. Going through this process with one parent will help you understand the process of helping others as well. On this slide, you will see the information needed for the call. Most of it's simple, but often the Social Security number or Medicaid number may not be memorized, so you'll want to be sure to have this information when making the call. One of the best things you can do is to help the parents by providing them the answers to the questions about the student's disabilities. Families may not know the correct term. I recommend circling or highlighting the appropriate disability category on the flyer so the parents have this when the intake screener asks. Please note that we have 2 different processes to help determine if a person is eligible. One of those is applying with autism, then there is a separate process for those applying with an intellectual disability or related disability. Be sure parents know the disability that they're applying for so that they are assigned to the correct process. For those applying with under the intellectual disability or related disability category, DDSN will assign an intake provider whose job it is to assist the families in gathering the documents to support that diagnosis. Families will need to select 3 intake providers from a list. The screener will read the list and the family can choose their top 3 choices. Intake providers can be from across the state, as intake is done through mail or via email. Please let families know that no one will come to their home. This process is free and there's no financial information needed to complete it. For those applying for under the diagnosis of autism, the process goes through our autism division. The family will get a packet in the mail to complete and will need to send copies of records to document their autism diagnosis. The phone call to the screener starts the process. Families need to know that they must follow up to keep the process going. They need to look out for mail sent to their home and answer phone calls from the autism or intake provider. If they're not sure what to do, they should call and ask for assistance. Families should get information in the mail within a week and receive some kind of phone contact within 2 weeks. If they do not receive a call, they need to reach back out to the screening line. Applying does not obligate you for any services. If warranted, DDSN may need to schedule an evaluation for more information if it's required to decide eligibility. DDSN provides evaluations at no cost to the family. If you have questions, or the family does, please feel free to visit our website. They will want to select the Services tab and then the Applying for the Services link. If families make the initial call but never call the intake provider back or don't return forms they get in the mail to keep the process moving, this can delay or close the case. Follow-up is essential in getting through this process. As a teacher or school professional, you can assist the family by helping them to identify the correct disability, provide copies of the records they need to share, and documenting the disability. The most helpful documents are the most recent IEP, with the disability listed, and copies of the psychoeducational evaluations. Testing IQ and adaptive behavior or autism rating scales for those with autism is very helpful. This can streamline the process if you can help the parents to identify the most relevant documents. You can also help by asking the family periodically where they are in the process. If you know a family has begun the process and is having trouble, you can reach out to one of your DDSN post-secondary transition coordinators. Case managers for DDSN are very much like IEP case managers are in the school. Case managers are the local point of contact in coordinating DDSN services for the person. Knowing a student's case manager is vital. Families need to reach out and maintain communication with their case manager. Case managers are the local contact for DDSN and the person you would invite to an IEP meeting. This slide shows how DDSN services operate. DDSN is a state agency whose role is to provide oversight. However, local service providers carry out the services to the individual or family through a network of local service providers. This slide provides an example from a local county. The service that is highlighted here in the umbrella is case management services. In this example, we listed 5 providers in Aiken County that are DDSN approved providers. Each county has a local DSN board that is a public provider. And then in this example, 4 other private providers also deliver the service of case management in this county. Our service system is very different from a school setting where you attend the high school in the zone you live in, and the student is assigned to a specific teacher, not one of their choosing. Students and families can choose a provider that they wish from a list of available providers. So in this example, all of these providers offer case management services. Each of these providers provides the same service, but families may prefer one versus the other. Selecting a preferred provider is sometimes confusing to families. Sometimes families don't realize the agency is providing the services for DDSN. Also, families may receive different services and they can get each service from a different provider. For example, a consumer may have the ARC of South Carolina as their case management provider, but have respite services or a job coach from the Aiken County Disabilities and Special Needs Board. You can learn more about our available service providers by visiting our website, as we add newly qualified providers or current providers may change the services they provide. For the most up-to-date list, from our homepage, you will want to select the Services tab, highlighted in yellow, and then select Find a Service Provider. I suggest scrolling down and selecting Search Our Provider Directory by Service and CANI. From there, you can choose the services such as case management and your CANI. This will generate a list. The service most teachers and school professionals will need to use will be for the service of case management. Case managers are vital contacts for school staff. It is their job to assess the student's needs and help develop a plan to address those needs. Case managers can link the consumer to needed services or can make referrals to connect students to other resources outside of DDSN, such as VR or other Medicaid services or programs. Please be aware that if a student does not have one of the DDSN waivers, they are most likely to have inactive case management services. Case managers are reimbursed by Medicaid or waivers for their work, and if a student does not have Medicaid or waiver, their services they provide are not reimbursable. Not having a waiver makes it difficult for case managers to attend IEP meetings and to engage regularly for these students. If a student has a waiver, case managers often can attend IEP meetings and want to be involved if they're working with a student. Invite your student's case manager to IEP meetings to share information and learn more about your student and their school program. To help improve case manager involvement, please call in advance with IEP meeting dates and times. Often with school-age youth, the student does not yet have a waiver or active case management. The DDSN transition coordinators have developed an optional tool called the School Case Manager Communication Form that can help to coordinate efforts when a case manager cannot attend or for assisting in planning for the IEP meeting. This form is available for download on the transition page of our website. Talk with the student's case manager about the student's goals after graduation and ask for help in exploring options after graduation. Advocating for their future is especially important in their final years of school so that exit planning can be successful. Some students leave school at age 18 while others stay until age 21. It assists our providers in planning for services after they exit. Funding for adult services is very different from the school district. Schools receive funding for the number of students enrolled and all the students that are required to have a free, public, appropriate education. Adult services are eligibility based, and there are requirements for the funding from sources such as Medicaid and waiver programs. DDSN receives funding from a variety of sources. The amount of funding can vary from year to year based on state and federal budgets. DDSN funds services from state funds, Medicaid funds, and from Medicaid home and community-based waivers. Medicaid funds 95% of the services DDSN provides. Although Medicaid is not required to be a consumer of DDSN services, having Medicaid offers more avenues for obtaining services that are needed. Adult Medicaid is different than Medicaid for children. Family Connection of South Carolina is an excellent resource for helping families to learn more about Medicaid and how they can obtain this for youth with disabilities. Waivers are one of the primary funding sources for people with disabilities. We are going to start with a little bit of history here. Before 1980s, people with disabilities received services in institutions. Fortunately, with disability laws and advocacy, people are now being served in most cases in their homes and local communities. As part of this process, Medicaid waiver programs allow people to take that money that would have been allowing adults agencies to serve a person with a disability in an institution and use those funds to keep that person closer to home. By having the focus be on the individual and community-based services, it has allowed more choice in how the funds support the individual consumer. South Carolina has 7 different home and community-based waiver programs. DDSN operates 3 of these waiver programs. You can think of a waiver like a little pot of money. A case manager will assess their needs and create a plan for funds to meet those needs when a person gets a waiver. These funds pay for services from a provider to care for the person. We will discuss the different waivers that DDSN operates. DDSN has waiver information sheets that provide greater detail about some of the services available to those who have the waiver. All of our waiver information sheets are on our DDSN website. The Community Supports Waiver is one of the waivers that DDSN administers. Remember back to the services we discussed that DDSN provides? Most of those services are funded through our waivers. DDSN provides services such as personal care services for ADLs, day program services for career preparation, support services to provide a safe place, and individual and group employment services. These services all cost DDSN to provide staffing and facilities to house these programs, while providing families places for their loved ones. Once a consumer has a waiver, DDSN services providers can provide services through funding from these waivers based on consumer needs. We have a waiting list for this waiver, so families need to be aware that they need to have their child's name added to the waiver waiting list if they want to have DDSN consider them for this funding. The waiting lists are statewide lists, so there are many people on it. The waiting list fluctuates, so I can't provide a firm time frame for how long a family may wait, but we can estimate that it could be roughly 3 to 4 years for this particular waiver. The annual cap varies by year, but it was $15,659 for 2019. This waiver may be sufficient for families in meeting a person's needs. Because sometimes people have more significant needs, families may also put their child's name on the IDRD waiver waiting list. This waiver offers some additional services that are not available on the Community Supports Waiver one. This waiver also is based on the needs of the person and does not have an annual cap. For this reason, the waiting list for this waiver is quite long. The waiting list for this waiver is estimated to be about 6 to 9 years long. As you can see, it is crucial to include adding students to the waiting list as soon as transition planning begins. If added early, most students will transition out of high school with services in place. We must work together as a team to ensure that our students are linked and prepared so that they can leave with the support they need to reach their goals for the next step. This waiver is for individuals with head and spinal cord injury. Currently, there is not a waiting list for this waiver. A head injury, spinal cord injury, or similar disability are often the result of an accident. Therefore, people generally do not sign up in advance for this type of waiver. As you can see, DDSN can provide many helpful and necessary services for individuals and families after high school. It is important to remember that planning is essential. Parents need to apply now before they need adult services. Teachers ask us all the time, at what age should families apply? We suggest that they apply by 6th grade or around age 11. That's before the age 13 transition starting phase for students in South Carolina. Our recommendation on the early application age is because DDSN has limited funding. And families need to plan now to be sure that they are set for when their child leaves school. If they apply now, They will be sure that their child is DDSN eligible and have been placed on the waiver waiting list before they need them. Because DDSN provides lifelong services, people receiving these services for long periods of time. Their needs also change during their lifespan. This means that the system has high demands regardless of the funding allocated yearly by the state and federal government. Additionally, planning is necessary because the local providers often may have a waiting list to provide the services due to things like space issues. For example, a day program must take place in licensed facilities with regulations about how many people can attend due to fire regulations, etc. Additionally, some services such as behavior support services require service providers with a background in behavior and may be in high demand. Services such as residential services, such as a community training home, are filled by critical need as we have many adults being cared for by elderly parents. Teachers and families can help DDSN by reminding community leaders of our consumers' needs and how vital this funding is for the safety and care of our consumers. You can help your students by ensuring that they're connected with DDSN if they may need any services from us as an adult. As a teacher, educating the family about DDSN is most helpful. Parents can plan best when they have information. As a teacher, you can participate with your DDSN transition coordinator in what we call targeted transition planning. It begins with the teacher getting the release of information form for each of their students to find out about their status with DDSN. As a teacher, you can do this for your class individually, or some districts have a coordinated effort across high schools where one person gathers all the release forms and information and serves as a point of contact to share back with the schools. If you are not currently doing this for your students, we encourage you to reach out to us so we can be sure all of your students are correctly linked with DDSN. Successful transition depends on getting your students linked as soon as they enter high school, ensuring that they are on the waiting list, and identifying the supports they will need to help them reach their goals. DDSN would like you to be aware of some of our philosophies regarding people with disabilities. One belief is that people with disabilities can work. Everyone can work, including people with disabilities, even those with more significant disabilities. If a young person wants to work, their desire must be supported. Work is the expected outcome for people without disabilities, so why shouldn't it be considered for everyone? Work provides people with a sense of purpose, a group of people to interact with, and an income to help meet their needs. Sometimes families and even other disability professionals have misunderstandings about employment, and unfortunately, sometimes work is not considered for those with more significant disabilities. At DDSN, our goal is for our consumers to be working in a community setting with other people without disabilities. We also like competitive employment, which means making at or above minimum wage for the work. Overuse of shelter workshops and adult services has been an ongoing issue, and there is so much support for ending this type of employment. Too many people who could work have spent years making pennies in segregated facilities with little regard for the kind of work a person wants, thus limiting their potential. Some of the confusion regarding work comes from misinformation. Often families think that people can not work and keep a Social Security insurance check. VR and SILS have benefit specialists or CWICs to help parents learn about work and how it affects their SSI or SSDI. We want students to work with SC vocational rehabilitation so that they can have the opportunities to learn pre-employment skills, or PREETs, that have opportunities to learn about what they're interested in and what they're good at doing. All students are eligible for pre-employment transition services from VR, and they can get those supports without being a VR client. We feel it is essential for students to have opportunities for non-paid and paid work experiences while in school. Our goal is for all students to leave school with a job. DDSN is very proud of a new program for students graduating from school with a job. If a student has left school and is thriving and stable on a job, DDSN can provide a follow-along job coach service once VR closes the person's case. This program is for those students who do not have waiver funds or other funds available to pay for a job coach follow-along service. The state-funded follow-along information flyer is available on the transition page of the DDSN Transition Services area of the website. Students with waiver funding can get job coaching services paid for out of their waiver funds. State-funded follow-along is for those without waiver funding and uses only state funds. We want all students to have an opportunity to achieve their highest potential. We want all students to exit special programs into a job. We all can think of a previous student who has surprised us with what they have been able to do. Often we do not set employment as an expectation for students, and sometimes we need to get creative and think of customized or supported employment for those with more significant needs. Part-time jobs, self-employment are things we sometimes don't consider. The DDSN Day program should not be the default plan for students coming out of self-contained or non-diploma programs. As educators, we have the responsibility to provide opportunities to build student skills, to prepare them for work, or opportunities for community integration. Some states will not allow young adults leaving high school to enter directly into day programs. Research has shown that most often, those who enter day program never gain competitive employment. The federal government has regulations designed to ensure that young adults have been given a choice and have had opportunities to work first. DDSN requires our providers to review documentation showing that young adults have had opportunities to work before accepting a young person into our day programs. Our providers will need to get information to show that the students had pre-employment transition services and that competitive employment was not appropriate if that provider has a sub-minimum wage certification. This requirement means you want to be sure that the IEP contains those activities, and the VR counselor in your school has considered appropriate pre-employment transition services for them. The Center for Medicaid Services, which provides much of our funding, has new requirements for providers that deliver Medicaid services. These requirements are designed to help keep individuals with disabilities living in inclusive settings and have outlined best practices to make residential settings we operate to feel more like home. Also, our day programs are working on revamping their programming to offer consumers more flexibility and choice in the activities they participate in, and are trying to look at ways for those services to be delivered in more inclusive settings like community centers or public places. What these changes mean for your students is that they will need to graduate high school with skills that they are going to need as an adult. They will need to be prepared to function in their homes and communities as independently as possible. They will need to know and be able to make choices so that they can direct how they spend their day. They will need to have communication and social skills to interact in the community, not just with paid staff. We want them to leave with employment so that they can participate like their graduating peers in jobs alongside coworkers without disabilities in a job they love while making a competitive wage. Thank you for listening today. I hope you will reach out to your transition coordinator in your area to be sure all of your students are connected. Please be sure to reference the DDSN website for more information, as well as for the contact information for your transition coordinator in your area. Please take time to review our website before you leave so you can become more familiar with the resources you and your families have there. Again, thank you for all the work you do with the students you serve. We hope you have found this helpful and look forward to working with you. Thank you.